The warning stones floated in the empty space around the third planet. There were thousands of them. Each stone was the size of a small moon, and each one carried the same message. The message was written in every known language in the galaxy. It was also written in languages that no one had spoken for thousands of years. Commander Rilox stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at the nearest stone through the viewing screen. His pale blue skin showed no emotion, but his 4 eyes blinked rapidly. This was a sign of curiosity among his people, the Veth. "What does it say?" asked his second officer, a younger Veth named Corin. Rilox read the words slowly. "Do not wake them. Do not land on the third world. Do not dig beneath the surface. They sleep by choice. Let them sleep. This is not a threat. This is mercy. They chose to give the universe peace. Do not take that gift away." Corin made a sound like laughter. "Who wrote this, and why?" "The third planet shows no signs of advanced life. Our scans show only ruins and dust." "The stones are old," Rilox said. "Very old. Our scientists say they are at least 10,000 years old. Maybe older." 10,000 years, Corin repeated. "That is before the Veth even left our home world. That is before the Dominion existed. Whoever wrote these warnings is long dead." Rilox looked at the blue and brown planet on his screen. It was a beautiful world, even now. There were oceans and mountains and the remains of great cities. But there was no movement. No ships, no signals. Just silence. "The Dominion Council wants this world," Rilox said. "They say it has rich metals beneath the surface. They say it will make us wealthy." "Then we should take it," Corin said. "These stones are just old rocks with old words. Whoever lived here is gone. They are not sleeping. They are dead. Nothing sleeps for 10,000 years." Rilox was not so sure. He had read the old histories. He had heard the stories that Elder Veth told their children. Stories about a species that came from the stars long ago. A species that was different from all others. They were soft and weak in body, but they carried something dangerous inside them. Something that made them terrible in ways that other species could not understand. But those were just stories. Children's tales. Nothing more. "Send the landing teams," Rilox ordered. "Begin the excavation." The ships descended through the thick clouds. They landed in what was once a great city. The buildings were broken and covered in dust, but their shapes still showed their old beauty. Whatever species had lived here, they had been builders. They had been creators. The Veth soldiers walked through the dead streets. Their boots left prints in dust that had not been disturbed for 10,000 years. They found statues of strange beings. The beings had only 2 eyes and 2 arms and stood on 2 legs. Their faces were frozen in expressions that the Veth did not understand. "They look so simple," one soldier said. "How did such simple creatures build all of this?" No one had an answer. The excavation machines began their work. They dug deep into the ground beneath the city. They dug through layers of rock and metal and concrete. And then they found something that made them stop. It was a door. A massive door made of a metal that their scanners could not identify. The door was 100 meters tall and 50 meters wide. And on its surface, there was writing. Rilox came down from his ship to see it himself. He stood before the great door and read the words carved into its surface. "We are humanity. We built empires across 1,000 stars. We fought wars that burned whole galaxies. We created weapons that could crack planets like eggs. We were powerful, too powerful. So we chose to sleep. We gave the universe a chance to grow without our shadow over it. Do not open this door. Do not wake us. We are not your enemy, but we will become your enemy if you force us. Let us sleep, please. Let us sleep." Corin stood beside his commander. More warnings. More empty threats. They are dead, Commander. Dead species do not write polite requests. These are not threats, Rilok said quietly. These are begging words. They are asking us to leave them alone. Why would a dead species beg? Because they wanted to scare away grave robbers, Curran said. It is a common trick. Ancient species often left false warnings to protect their treasures. Open the door, Commander. Let us see what they were hiding. Rilox thought about it for a long moment. The Dominion Council expected results. They had sent him here to claim this world and its resources. If he returned empty-handed, he would face their anger. And the anger of the Council was not a small thing. Open the door, he ordered. The machines worked for 3 days. The door was strong, stronger than anything the Veth had ever seen. But eventually, it began to move. Slowly, centimeter by centimeter, the great door opened. Cold air rushed out from the darkness beyond. It was the coldest air any of the Veth had ever felt. It burned their skin and made their breath turn to fog dot, and then they saw what was inside. Rows. Endless rows stretching into the darkness. Thousands of rows. Millions of rows. Each row held glass containers, and inside each container was a body. A human body. They were not dead. Their chests rose and fell with slow, peaceful breaths. Machines connected to their containers hummed with quiet power. They are alive, Curran whispered. His voice had lost its confidence. They are all alive. Relox walked forward slowly. He approached one of the containers and looked at the human inside. It was a female with dark hair and a peaceful face. She looked young, but the date on her container said she had been sleeping for 10,043 years. Her name was displayed on a small screen. Yuna. How many are there? Relox asked. An officer checked his scanner. His hands were shaking. Commander, the vault extends for hundreds of kilometers. There are similar vaults on every continent. Our estimates suggest 8 billion. There are 8 billion of them. Rilox felt something he had not felt in many years. He felt fear. Wake them, Corinne said suddenly. Wake them all. Think of it, Commander. 8 billion workers. 8 billion slaves. The Dominion will reward us beyond measure. Rilox wanted to say no. He wanted to close the door and fly away, and never return to this terrible place. But Karn was already giving orders. Soldiers were already moving toward the containers. The machines began the waking process, and somewhere in the depths of the vault, in a container marked with the name Te, a man's eyes began to open. The cold was the first thing Te felt. It was a deep cold that lived inside his bones. His body did not want to move. His muscles felt like they were made of stone. But he forced his eyes to open anyway. The light was too bright. Everything was blurry and white. He tried to lift his hand to block the light, but his arm would not obey him. He tried to speak, but only a rough sound came from his throat. "This one is awake," a voice said. It was a strange voice. It did not sound human. Hands grabbed him. They pulled him from his container and dropped him on a cold floor. He lay there, gasping, trying to remember how to breathe. Slowly, his vision began to clear. He saw feet. Many feet. But they were wrong. They were blue and had too many toes. He looked up and saw creatures standing over him. They were tall and thin with pale blue skin. They had 4 eyes and long arms and faces that showed no feeling. "What? What are you?" Tay managed to ask. "Silence," one of the creatures said. "You will speak only when we tell you to speak." More humans were being pulled from their containers. They lay on the floor around Tay, coughing and shaking from the cold. Some were crying. Some were calling out names. One woman near him was trying to stand, but her legs kept failing her. Tay recognized her. It was Yuna. He knew her from before the sleep. She had been a commander in the defense forces. She had been one of the ones who decided that humanity should sleep. "Yuna," he whispered. She turned her head toward him. Her eyes were cloudy, but recognition slowly came to them. "Tay, is that you?" "Yes, what is happening?" Before she could answer, one of the blue creatures kicked him in the side. "No talking," it said. "Stand up. All of you. Stand up now." Slowly, painfully, the humans got to their feet. There were about 50 of them in this group. They held onto each other for support. Their bodies were weak from 10,000 years of sleep. The creatures led them through long tunnels and up to the surface. When they stepped outside, Tay had to shield his eyes. The sun was so bright. The air was so fresh. He had forgotten what fresh air tasted like. They were in the ruins of a city. Tay recognized the shapes of some buildings. This had been so once. This had been his home. But now it was broken and covered in plants. The towers had fallen. The streets had disappeared under grass and trees. "How long?" Yuna asked one of the guards. "How long were we asleep?" The guard looked at her with its 4 cold eyes. 10,000 of your years. Your kind has been forgotten. Your empires are dust. Your weapons are rust. You are nothing now. You belong to the Veth Dominion. 10,000 years. Tay could not understand it. He had closed his eyes for what felt like one night. And now 10,000 years had passed. Everyone he knew was dead. Every place he loved was gone. The whole world had moved on without him. The Veth gathered all the awakened humans in a large open area. There were hundreds of them now, pulled from different vaults across the city. More were arriving every minute. The Veth soldiers watched them with weapons in their hands. A Veth officer walked to the front of the crowd. He was taller than the others and wore a uniform with bright colors. "I am Commander Rilox," he said. "You are now property of the Veth Dominion. You will work. You will obey. You will serve. Those who follow orders will be fed and housed. Those who do not follow orders will be punished. There are no exceptions." Tay felt anger rising in his chest. He had been a soldier before the sleep. Every part of him wanted to fight. But he looked at the weapons the Veth carried. He looked at his own weak body. He knew that fighting now would mean death. Yuna seemed to have the same thoughts. She put her hand on his arm and squeezed gently. A message. Wait, not yet. The humans were divided into groups. Some were sent to dig in the mines. Some were sent to carry heavy loads. Some were sent to clean the Veth ships. They were given no choices. They were given no rest. Tay and Yuna were put in the same work group. They spent their first day carrying metal boxes from one place to another. The work was hard, and their bodies were still weak. By the end of the day, Tay could barely stand. That night, they were locked in a large room with 50 other humans. There were no beds. There were no blankets. Just a cold floor and thin walls. Tay sat next to Yuna in a corner of the room. They spoke in whispers so the guards outside would not hear. "Have you noticed something strange about them?" Yuna asked. "Strange how?" "The way they hold their weapons. The way they stand. The way they give orders." She paused. "They do not know how to be soldiers." Tay thought about it. She was right. The Veth moved awkwardly with their weapons. They did not watch the right places. They did not stand in positions that could defend against attack. They acted like children playing with toys they did not understand. "They have never fought," Tay said slowly. "Not really. Not like we have." Yuna nodded. "I talked to one of the guards today. He was young and careless with his words. He told me that the Veth have never had a war. Not once in their entire history. They evolved on a world with no predators. They spread across the stars without meeting anyone who could challenge them. No predators, Tay repeated. No enemies. No wars. They do not know what violence truly means. They use weapons because they saw other species use them, but they have never needed them. They have never felt fear. Tay looked around the room at the other humans. They were tired and scared and confused, but there was something else in their eyes too. Something that the Veth did not have. They made a mistake, Tay said. A terrible mistake. Yes, Yuna agreed. They woke something they do not understand. They think we are weak because our bodies are soft. They think we are simple because we have only 2 eyes. But they do not know what humans are. What are we? Yuna was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. We are the species that crawled out of the mud and looked at the stars and said, I want those. We are the species that fought ourselves for 1,000,000 years before we ever met another species. We have war in our blood. We have violence in our bones. We tried to sleep because we knew what we were capable of. We chose peace because we were afraid of ourselves. She looked at Tay with eyes that were no longer cloudy. They were sharp and clear and full of something ancient. These Veth think they own us. They think they can make us slaves. But they do not know the truth. What truth? Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who remembered terrible things. We did not sleep because we were tired. We slept because we were too dangerous to stay awake. 2 months passed. The Veth continued to wake more humans. There were now over 100,000 of them working across the planet. The Dominion was pleased. The work was going faster than expected. Earth's resources were flowing to Veth ships. Every day they did not notice the change happening beneath their noses. The humans worked harder than before. They never complained. They followed every order. The Veth guards became relaxed. They stopped watching so closely. Some of them even started to see the humans as harmless animals. Useful, but not important. This was exactly what Yuna wanted. She had organized the humans into silent groups. Each group had a leader. Each leader reported to her through a chain of whispers and secret signals. No Veth ever saw them meet. No Veth ever heard them plan. The humans moved through the camps like ghosts, always watching, always waiting. Tay led one of the groups. His people were the strongest, the ones who had been soldiers before the sleep. They trained in secret at night when the Veth were not watching. They remembered old fighting techniques. They practiced with their bare hands, with rocks, with pieces of metal stolen from the work sites. Hana led the medical group. She gathered medicines and supplies, hiding them in places the Veth would never look. She taught others how to treat wounds, how to set broken bones, how to save lives when there were no machines to help. Old General Do-Yoon led the planners. He studied the Veth. He learned their patrol routes, their guard schedules, their communication systems. He found their weaknesses. And there were many weaknesses. They have never fought a real enemy, Do-Yoon reported one night. Their security is a joke. They leave their weapons in open racks. Their ships have simple locks. Their guards talk about sensitive information where anyone can hear. But Yuna wanted more. She wanted to find the old human weapons. She knew they were still out there somewhere. Before the sleep, humanity had hidden their most powerful technology in secret vaults around the world. The Veth did not know about these vaults. No one did. The locations had been erased from all records, almost all records. There was an old military base beneath the mountains. The Veth had not found it yet because there was no surface entrance. But Yuna remembered the stories. Her grandmother had been one of the commanders who chose the sleeping plan. She had told Yuna secrets that were never written down. One night, Yuna gathered a small team. Tay was with her, along with 3 others who had been Special Forces soldiers. They slipped away from the camp during a shift change. The Veth did not notice. They never noticed. The journey took 3 hours. They moved through old tunnels and broken subways that the Veth had not explored. Finally, they reached a door hidden behind a collapsed wall. It was covered in dust and rust, but the ancient symbols on its surface were still visible. "This is it," Una said. Thought the door required a code that had not been used in 10,000 years. But Una remembered. Her grandmother had made her memorize it when she was just a child. She entered the numbers. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the door made a sound. A deep, heavy sound like a giant waking from sleep. And slowly, it opened. Inside was a room filled with screens and machines. Emergency lights flickered on as they entered. The air was stale but breathable. Everything was covered in dust, but it was all still there. "The archives," Tay whispered. "The military archives." Una walked to the main console. Her fingers shook as she touched the keys. Screens came alive around her. They showed maps, lists, plans. Everything humanity had been before the sleep. Everything they had hidden. "There," she said, pointing to one screen. "Weapons caches. All over the planet. The Veth haven't found any of them." The list was long. Rifles and explosives. Ground vehicles and flying machines. Ships that could travel between stars. And more. Things that Una did not have names for. Things that humanity had created in their darkest hours. "We could destroy the Veth fleet in an hour," Tay said, reading the specifications of one weapon system. 1 hour. They have no defenses against this. But there was more in the archives. Not just weapons. History. The true history of humanity, not the stories they told children. Una read it with a heavy heart. Humanity had not always been peaceful. For most of their existence, they had been warriors. They had spread across the stars like a fire, burning everything in their path. They had met other species and conquered them. They had met species they could not conquer and destroyed them. The galaxy had formed alliances against them. Great coalitions of 100 worlds, 1,000 species, all united in fear of the humans. They had fought wars that lasted centuries. They had killed billions. They had been killed in billions, and in the end, they had won. Not because they were smarter or stronger or more advanced. Because they simply would not stop. Other species had limits. Humans did not. Other species could be broken. Humans could not. After the last war, humanity had looked at the empty galaxy around them. They had looked at the graves of countless species. They had looked at what they had become, and they had been afraid. The sleeping plan, Una read aloud. Humanity will enter controlled hibernation. All weapons will be hidden. All ships will be destroyed. We will leave warnings for any future species that may find us. We hope that in 10,000 years, the galaxy will have grown strong enough to defend itself. We hope we will wake to a universe that does not need to fear us anymore. Tears ran down her face. She had known the general story, but not the details. Not the weight of what humanity had done. "We tried to be better," she whispered. "We tried to give them a chance." Tay put his hand on her shoulder. "And they woke us anyway. They made us slaves. They beat our people." Una wiped her tears. When she turned around, her eyes were hard. "Yes, they woke us. And now they will see what that means." She began downloading everything from the archives. Maps to the weapon caches. Codes to activate the old systems. Plans for military operations. Everything humanity needed to become what it once was. "We will give them one chance," Una said. "We will offer them peace. We will ask them to leave and never return. And if they refuse?" Tay asked. Una looked at the screen, showing the hidden human warships. Hundreds of them, sleeping in caves beneath mountains and oceans. waiting for the call that would wake them. If they refuse, then the galaxy will remember why they wrote those warnings, and why everyone who ever met humanity learned to fear that name. 3 weeks passed. The Veth woke more humans every day. Soon there were thousands of them working in the ruins of Earth. They dug in the mines. They built new structures for the Veth. They carried and cleaned and obeyed. But something was changing. The humans were getting stronger. Their bodies were recovering from the long sleep. Muscles that had been still for 10,000 years were remembering how to work. Eyes that had been closed were learning to see clearly again, and they were watching. Always Watching Tay worked in a group that moved supplies from the landing area to the Veth camps. The work was not hard anymore. His body had adjusted. His strength had returned. He could carry twice as much as any Veth, and he could do it without getting tired. The Veth did not notice. They saw small humans with soft skin, and they assumed weakness. They did not see the muscles growing beneath that skin. They did not see the old memories returning to those human eyes. Yuna had become a leader among the humans. Not officially, of course. The Veth did not allow them to have leaders. But the other humans looked to her anyway. They came to her with their problems. They asked her for guidance. And she always had the same answer. Wait, watch. Remember, there was a young woman in their group named Hannah. She had been a medic before the sleep. She was small and gentle and had a kind smile. She helped the other humans when they were sick or hurt. She shared her food with those who had none. Everyone loved Hannah. The Veth officer in charge of their section was named Vrel. He was cruel in the way that someone who has never known suffering can be cruel. He enjoyed making the humans run faster and work harder. He laughed when they fell. He punished them for the smallest mistakes. One day, an old human man collapsed while carrying a heavy load. He was too tired. His heart could not take the work. Hannah ran to help him. She held his head and checked his pulse and did everything she could to save him, but it was too late. The old man died in her arms. Hannah stayed with him. She closed his eyes gently. She whispered words of comfort, even though he could no longer hear them. This was what humans did. This was how they honored their dead. Vrel walked over to her. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "Get back to work." "Please," Hannah said softly. "Let me take care of him. Let me bury him properly." "Bury him? He is just a human. Throw the body in the waste pit and continue your duties." Hannah did not move. She stayed kneeling beside the old man's body. "I cannot do that. He was a person. He deserves respect." Vrel's 4 eyes narrowed. He was not used to being disobeyed. He had never met a species that would disobey him. In his experience, all creatures followed the strong, and the Veth were the strongest. "You will do as I command," he said. "No," Hannah replied. Her voice was still soft, but there was steel in it now. "I will not throw him away like garbage. He was a human being." Vrel raised his hand and struck her across the face. The blow was hard enough to knock her to the ground. Her lips split open. Blood ran down her chin. Everything stopped. The humans who were nearby froze in their work. They turned to look, and something ancient stirred in their blood. Something that had slept even longer than their bodies. Tay felt it first. It was a heat in his chest, a tightness in his hands. Every muscle in his body wanted to move. Every instinct screamed at him to act. A Veth had hurt one of their own. A Veth had made one of them bleed. He took a step forward. His hands curled into fist. But Yuna was faster. She appeared at his side and grabbed his arm. Her grip was like iron. "Not yet," she hissed. "Look around you." Tay looked. There were Veth guards everywhere. They had weapons. The humans had nothing. If they fought now, they would die. But the other humans had felt it too. Tay could see it in their eyes. The way they stood straighter, the way their jaws tightened, the way they looked at the Veth with something new. Not fear, not respect. Something darker. Hana stood up slowly. She wiped the blood from her face. And then she did something that shocked everyone. She smiled. It was a small smile. A quiet smile. But there was no fear in it. No pain. Just patience. I understand, she said to Vrel. I will return to work. Vrel seemed confused by her response. He had expected crying. He had expected begging. He had expected the kind of submission that other species always showed. But this human stood there with blood on her face and smiled at him. See that you do, he finally said. He walked away, but he kept looking back over his shoulder. For the first time in his life, he felt unsure. That night, the humans gathered in their sleeping area. More of them came than ever before. They packed into the room until there was no space left. Then they all looked at Yuna. Something has changed, she said. I felt it today. You all felt it. The humans nodded. No one needed to explain. They all understood. We have been sleeping for 10,000 years, Yuna continued. But now we are awake. Not just our bodies. Our minds. Our hearts. Our blood. She paused and looked around the room. Do you remember why we chose to sleep? Do you remember what we were? An old man spoke up. His name was Do-Yun. He'd been a general once, a long time ago. We were killers, he said. The best killers the universe had ever seen. We conquered 1,000 worlds. We destroyed species that threatened us. We built weapons that could crack stars. And then we stopped, Yuna said. We looked at what we had become, and we were afraid. Not of other species. Of ourselves. We were afraid of what we would do if we kept going. Tay stood up. His voice was strong and clear. They have woken us. They have made us slaves. And tonight, one of them made Hana bleed. A sound went through the crowd. It was not a word. It was more like a growl, a rumble that came from deep in the chest. We tried to give the universe peace, Yuna said. We tried to stay asleep. We wrote warnings in every language. We begged them to leave us alone. But they did not listen. She looked at Hana, who stood nearby with the cut on her lip still fresh. They woke us. They beat us. They call us property. And now they will learn why every ancient race in the galaxy was afraid of humanity. Do-Yun smiled. It was the same kind of smile that Hana had given Vrel. Patient. Knowing. Dangerous. What do we do? Someone asked. For now, we continue to work. We continue to obey. We let them think we are weak and broken. But we also watch. We learn their routines. We find their weaknesses. We remember what we are. Yuna raised her hand. There was something in it. A small piece of metal she had taken from the mines. It was nothing special. Just a piece of scrap. But in her hands, it looked like the beginning of something terrible. Humanity slept for 10,000 years. The galaxy forgot why that was a mistake. It is time to remind them. Commander Relox received the message on a quiet morning. It was transmitted to every Veth ship, every Veth officer, every Veth communication device on Earth. It came from a frequency that should not have existed. This is Commander Yuna of the Human Defense Force. You have made a mistake. You ignored our warnings. You opened our doors. You woke our people. You made us slaves. You beat us. You killed us. We gave you 10,000 years of peace. In return, you gave us chains. Relox stood frozen on his bridge, listening. We are offering you one chance. Leave this planet. Leave this system. Never return. Take your ships and go. Tell your Dominion what you found here. Tell them to leave humanity alone. If you do this, there will be no more death. If you do not, we will remind the galaxy why it learned to fear our name." The message ended. Karin was beside him. His second officer's 4 eyes were wide with confusion. How did they send that? They have no technology. They are primitives. Find them, Relax ordered. Find the human who sent that message. Bring her to me. But before his soldiers could move, alarms began to ring across the camp. Red lights flashed. Screens showed warnings that made no sense. "Commander," a panicked officer called out. "We are detecting power signatures. Hundreds of them. All over the planet." "What kind of power signatures?" "Unknown. But they are big. Very big. And they are moving." Beneath the mountains, the old human warships began to wake. Their engines had been cold for 10,000 years. Now they burned hot again. Their weapon systems came online. Their shields activated. One by one, they rose from their hiding places dotting the camps. The Veth guards never had a chance. The humans moved like water, flowing through the buildings and streets they had learned so well. They knew every patrol route, every blind spot, every weakness. Tay led his team into the weapon storage. The Veth guards saw them coming, but could not react fast enough. They had never faced an enemy who moved like this, who fought like this. The humans were not just fast. They were precise. Every movement had purpose. Every strike hit exactly where it needed to hit. In 60 seconds. The guards were down, and the humans had their weapons. Hana moved through the medical tents, freeing the sick and wounded humans. She had prepared for this night. She knew exactly where everyone was. She knew which ones could fight and which ones needed to be carried. General Dahyun coordinated everything from a hidden position. He watched through cameras the humans had secretly placed throughout the camp. He gave orders through radio signals the Veth could not detect. And Yuna walked calmly toward the Veth command center. Relax saw her coming. He saw the way she walked, straight and strong, like a queen approaching her throne. Behind her came more humans. They were not the broken slaves he had seen before. They moved like soldiers. They held Veth weapons like they had been born with them. "Stop her!" he shouted. His guards tried. They raised their weapons and fired. The humans did not stop. Some fell, but others kept coming. They did not hesitate. They did not show fear. They moved forward like a wave that could not be turned back. Relax understood something in that moment. He understood why his ancestors had never fought wars. It was not because they were peaceful. It was because they had never met anything worth fighting. The humans reached the command center. They came through the doors and windows. They came from everywhere at once. And in the center of them all stood Yuna. "Your ships are surrounded," she said calmly. "Your soldiers are defeated. You have one chance. Surrender now, and you will live. Fight, and you will not." Relax looked around him. His officers were on the ground. His guards were either dead or had dropped their weapons. His great fleet that had seemed so powerful was now trapped between human warships that had appeared from nowhere. He remembered the warning stones. The words carved in 1,000 languages. Do not wake them. This is not a threat. This is mercy. "I surrender," he said, but not all the Veth listened. In orbit, the fleet commander was a proud old warrior named Thane. He had not seen what happened on the surface. He only knew that humans had attacked his people, and he would not let that stand. "All ships," Thane ordered. "Fire on the human positions. Destroy them all." The Veth weapons fired. Beams of energy shot down toward Earth. They were powerful weapons, the best the Dominion had. They never reached the ground. The human warships moved to intercept. Shields that had been designed 10,000 years ago stopped the Veth weapons like they were toys. And then the human weapons returned fire. Thane had 1 second to understand his mistake. 1 second to see the power that the humans had hidden. 1 second to realize that his fleet was not facing primitive creatures. Then his ship disappeared in a ball of fire. The other Veth ships tried to run. Some made it to faster than light speed. Most did not. In 3 minutes, the fleet that had come to conquer Earth was scattered and broken. On the surface, Una watched the flashes in the sky. Beside her, Rilox was on his knees, trembling. "You could have destroyed us at any time," he whispered. "You had these weapons all along. Why did you wait?" Una looked down at him. Her face showed no anger, no joy, just a deep, heavy sadness. "Because we did not want this. We never wanted this. We wrote the warnings. We begged you to leave us alone. We slept for 10,000 years, hoping the universe would learn to be peaceful. But you would not let us sleep." She turned to look at the ruins of the city around her, the buildings that had once been her home, the streets that had once been filled with life. "Go back to your dominion," she said. "Tell them what you found here. Tell them what happened when you ignored our warnings. Tell them that humanity is awake now. And tell them this." She leaned close to Rilox, and her voice dropped to a whisper. "We are going to be watching. We are going to give the galaxy one more chance. If you come in peace, we will welcome you. If you come in war, we will end you. We do not want to be killers anymore. But we have not forgotten how." Rilox fled Earth that day, along with every surviving Veth. They spread across the galaxy, carrying the message Una had given them. The story spread like fire. Every species heard it. Every empire discussed it. Humanity was awake. The species that had once conquered 1,000 worlds. The species that had fought wars that burned galaxies. The species that had been so terrible that even they were afraid of themselves. They were awake. And they were watching. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. Old enemies made peace. Trade routes opened. Species that had never spoken began to talk. Not because they wanted to, but because they remembered the warnings. And on Earth, humanity rebuilt. They raised new cities from the ruins. They planted gardens in the ashes. They welcomed visitors from other worlds with open hands and careful eyes. Una stood on a hill overlooking the new soul. Tay was beside her, and Hana and Old Doyon. They watched ships from 12 worlds land at the new spaceport. Aliens walked the streets, trading and talking and living in peace. "Do you think it will last?" Tay asked. Una smiled. It was a real smile this time, warm and hopeful. "I do not know, but we gave them a second chance, just like we wanted. And this time, we will be awake to make sure they do not waste it." The sun set over a world that had slept for 10,000 years and woken to find it had one more chance. And somewhere in the quiet of space, the warning stones still floated, carrying their ancient message. But now there was a new message carved beside the old one. A message in human hands. "We are awake now. Do not make us regret it.